Thank you for having me. And I just, Benton County is one of my favorite places, so I'm really glad to be down here with you. Um, yes, as Mark introduced me, underneath all of this, I am a public health nurse. And I think that's why I do the work that I do, is to work for improving the health of the communities, individuals, families, and communities. Um, and I've really spent a lot of my life trying to work upstream on preventive things. Okay. And so the medical care part, other colleagues worked on, but I managed the clinics in Multnomah County that serve 50,000 people. So I've kind of been in all phases of this, but ultimately my goal is to have healthier people and healthier communities. But until we get everybody having access to basic medical care that's affordable, that they aren't, going bankrupt over it, that they have access to care, um, we can't really get up to the prevention stuff, and I've spent a lot of my time working with, various other organizations too, where we wanted money to do some preventive work. One of the things that I did work on too was getting the Northwest Mother's Milk Bank. So human milk bank for breastfeeding moms who couldn't breastfeed their babies, preemies, etc. And that particular project, we needed capitalization. We needed to be able to buy the sterilizers and the refrigerators and all those things that you needed to have. And I went around to the different insurance companies, to the suits that I call them, and explained why this prevention, why it was really important, and how they would save money, and yada yada yada. And and it was really, really hard. And it kind of hit, me alongside the head when one of them said, well, Mary Lou, if we give you money from X insurance company, um, maybe a year from now, people belong to Y insurance company. And so they'll get the benefits of this prevention over here. So why should I, invest over here? And it was like, it really then hit me, no, we have to get everybody under the same tent. And then it will make sense. So we aren't gonna magically, do all this prevention on day one, but over time, it will make economic sense along with making, human sense for the people that are covered. And so anyway, that's kind of why I do this work and keep, some days beating my head against the wall like all of you do, thinking, will this ever really come to be? I joined the governance board about a year ago, a little over a year now. So it had been going for a year, and you all know Warren George, and Warren had been on the board and decided he needed to resign. And so I ended up being chosen to fill Warren's spot. And so when you come in, I tell people it's like coming into the movie, halfway into the movie and trying to figure out the plot and the subplots and what's all going on. So it took me a few months to kind of feel like I really belonged there, or that I knew what was going on and maybe how to be as effective as I could. But finally people said, you have to stop saying you're new now. It's no longer can you get by with saying, well, I'm new. Anyway, so I served on the Finance and Revenue Committee that Warren had been on, and that took a while to get up to speed. Trust me, with your, oh dear, oh no, hang on a second. Oh, sorry. Good voicemail. Okay. Um, so I served on that committee, and as many of you probably know, and some of us are frustrated, and you may be too, that some of these committees really shut down, in my mind, too early. We really hadn't finished our work. And I think the big issue around how are we going to pay for this thing is the big elephant in the room that everybody, is asking. And to be honest, we still haven't got it totally figured out. We've, I think, made some progress. And in the next couple of months, if you haven't heard, at the last board meeting, we did vote 6-3, there's 9 people on the board, to say that when we go forward with the report in September, that we will not put the revenue portion in that report until December. And that was a bit contentious. Not everybody agreed. Our chair and vice chair didn't agree with this, but the majority of us said it's just not quite ready. And we need to be able to present it in a way that we don't immediately have the adversaries, saying, this is ridiculous, this much income tax, we can't do that. And so we have to be able to get it pretty right, and then to be able to explain it and market it and defend it so that we don't have everybody immediately going, we can't do this. Because we've got the mess that we have, you all know, in healthcare right now. Each one of you, if you told your story, probably has a differing way that you're paying for healthcare. Some of us are on Medicare, and so we pay for it kind of one way, and maybe you're on an Advantage plan, or maybe you're on original Medicare. There may be people in the room who are on Medicaid. There may be people who are still employed and have their employer paying part or all of their healthcare benefit. And so our goal is to make the revenue plan as equitable as we can, as progressive as we can, meaning that low income people won't pay, people at the upper end of income will pay higher, and that it'll be shared, because right now employers are paying for, many employers are paying either all or part of the benefit for the people who work for them. There are, like I said, there's Medicare, there's all of these different ways. And so if we went around the room and I said, well, I'm on Medicare and I pay, the Medicare premium out of my Social Security, but then I'm also on the Kaiser Advantage plan and I pay a little bit more every month for that. My husband is covered by the VA, but he also has Medicare, so it's really, my daughter is a teacher. She works half-time now. She has to pay half of her monthly premium. When she was a full-time teacher, it was totally paid. So she, as a half-time teacher, is paying $1,200 a month. So it's just very different, and how to devise a revenue plan so that she feels treated fairly, that I feel treated fairly, that you all treated fairly, is not easy. And I'm not going to beat around the bush and say that everybody is going to be a winner financially. Some people will end up paying, and it's the way we're looking at it now, it's people who make $500,000 income a year. And there's not a whole bunch of those. There are people who are, and they will probably pay more than they're paying right now, because it's unfair. If I work for a company and I make $100,000 a year, the premium I pay is the same as somebody who's making $500,000 a year. That really isn't fair. And so how to fix it without the $500,000 a year person feeling like, well, all of a sudden I'm having to pay more, and the person down at the 100 or the 50, is paying less. So we're working on those kinds of values and principles. And, we kind of think we've almost got it. And then we go, well, what about this? Linda Kreider calls us and says, what about this? and Alex Polikoff calls and says, well, what about this? And that input is really helpful. We, even though you kind of go, oh, dear Lord, how come didn't we think of that? Or how can we fix that? Getting that input has been really helpful and continue. So people that have time to watch it and to give input, Bobby's done that. So I really encourage you to kind of go, okay, we're thinking of the whole. This is going to be a public good. Right now in our environment, especially like my husband's house out near LeGrand, out in Union County, there are a lot of folks who aren't so much into the public good. they're into, kind of what's in it for me and who are you? And let's not be socialized medicine here, so we're kind of, that's not so much here in Corvallis. But in other parts of the state especially, we run into a lot of people who aren't really in favor of this whole idea. Yeah,
I think one thing people want to get, that maybe people might be looking at how it is now, but next year you could have a tremendous
yes,
problem. And you would love to have help.
yeah,
You would love to have help.
and that's the
And that
kind
would
of
change just.
telling people. That's what happened to my daughter. She was a full-time teacher in Portland Public Schools. Their union has done a great job for full-time teachers. She didn't pay anything for her health plan. She got health issues and had to drop back to half-time. So she makes half salary now and pays $1,200 a month for her insurance. As well as a couple of years ago, when they had their strike, their teacher strike, the thing that the school district held over their head was, if you don't settle next month, you won't have health insurance. So that's another kind of club that is sometimes used against people. So I guess all I'm trying to say is we're working on it. I think we're getting close. And the four components that at the moment are part of our plan, or we still working on, is the corporate income tax, a corporate activity tax. There are already those kind of taxes that corporations pay, and we are increasing those too, so that corporations will be paying more. Okay, well, they may not all be real excited about it. Okay. The third one is the employer payroll tax. So if you run a business and have employees, and if your business is more than $500,000 in salaries, then you are going to pay a percentage of a payroll tax on behalf of those employees. And right now, what we've got in our plan is that if you're one of those employees, then your personal tax will be credited with half of what your employer paid. That's the employer payroll tax credit. Okay, so if you make $50,000 a year, and I'm just going to use a rough number of 10%. It's not finalized yet, and we've been talking 9.6, it could be 12, but the employer paying, say, would pay $5,000 if you made 50. And then on your personal income tax, you would get a credit of 2,500. The other 2,500 goes into the pot to help pay for the whole thing. And the reason, and we've debated it and argued it, and we haven't totally put our final stamp on that this is what we're gonna do, but we feel like the economists say, and I've become convinced of this, that your compensation is your salary and your benefits. So really, if they're paying, 5,000 on your behalf or 10,000, whatever thing, that's really part of your benefit, part of your compensation. And so if we don't give you a credit, then it's really taking it away from the individual twice. So we're talking about it then, income tax also. So what we're exempting the first 200% of federal poverty, because right now, anybody who has an income of less than 200% of poverty is on Oregon Health Plan and they don't pay. So we don't want to start having low income people that have not been having to pay, all of a sudden starting to have to pay. But we want to give everybody that benefit. So back to my $50,000 example, for twice the poverty level for a single person is about 32,000. It's 31 something. Okay, about 32,000. So I got my 50,000. We subtract 32. And so I'm going to say that's, 18. And then if you've got an employer that's paying, you also get to deduct that. So that 50,000 person really isn't going to be paying anything for this plan. But if you make 100,000, you know, it goes up and you start paying. So I guess I'm just wanting to say that each one of these things, we're wrestling with it really hard, and we like people's input about what seems to make the most sense. And we, at our last meeting, we voted that if we're gonna turn our plan in September, our report, and there is some discussion right now whether we will ask for an extension. We have been given kind of the green light from some legislators that if we need a little more time, they're willing to do that. So,
I think,
okay,
two of mine,
Uh-huh.
Sarah, Gasper and McDonald,
okay,
they're two of my inspiration
okay,
for me because they're big, I mean, really big with people with disabilities.
yeah,
I am one. You're looking at her. And that's my main focus.
okay. When we are focused on being sure that people with disabilities are not getting anything less than they're getting now, and maybe getting some other things, you know, so it's just all of these pieces that we're struggling with. But what we did at the board decide last meeting was that the financial plan needs to continue to have more discussion, more input. And by December, when we believe that we can either revise the September one or maybe have actually submitted in December, things are kind of going around like this right now. I can't speak to anything more specific tonight, but keep tuned. That we will have a much more definitive plan on that revenue. Or the other thing we're talking about is, what about if in our report we gave three options? Like you could do it this way, and this is how much revenue you'd net, and this is what it would do to people. You could do it this way and really let the legislators have some look at and some ability to say, well, this, you know, and get input from their constituents about this seems to fit better with people. So we're in that phase. It's, you know, they say it's not good to watch legislation or sausage being made. And we are definitely in the sausage making business, right now, but I just want to thank people like Linda, who has really, and Alex, who've gotten down in the weeds on this stuff and give us really specific, well, what about this? And what about that? And had you thought about doing this? And, it's really listened to. I want people to know that. People are giving other kinds of input too. Let's see. I think that's the number one question. If people remember when the governor, signed her letter, sorry, I'm back to you, Mike. When the governor signed her letter, you know, to put Senate Bill 1089 into play and became, you know, the ORS, 350. She said, I certainly hope that we're not giving you $1.8 million to just replicate what the task force did. And to be very honest, to this point, I think we have not done too much more than what the task force did. We've looked at it again, we've, you know, said yes, etc. But the revenue thing is what the task force did not do, because it is complicated and hard, and they didn't have time to do it. And so I'm a believer that we have got to put forth a revenue plan, and we can't just kick this can down the road.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm getting old, and it's like, I would really like to be alive when we implement this, and but I'm really doing it for future generations. I'm doing it for my children and my grandchildren. And healthcare should be a public good, you know that. It should not be this capitalistic mess that we've got. But to get from the mess to something that's a universal single payer plan, especially when we've got the, I don't know, the idiosyncrasies of Medicare, federal plan, Medicaid, which is federal and state, And you all know that we're right now in the midst of this big mess with this HR1, where there's potential to lose Medicaid money, and we need that money. So I'm very hopeful that there will be a change in administration in 2 years, and that we can, get back to being reasonable again and having people at the federal level that we can deal with, because no matter how quickly we go, we're estimating it would probably be 2032 before it really happens. I mean, that seems like a very long time, but we gotta keep mushing on. Yeah.
So any of the plans you consider are really dependent on getting some of the federal Medicare money?
Yes, yes.
You probably should
Medi-
repeat the
Yes.
question.
Oh, repeat the question. The question is, say it one more time then.
So any of the financial projections you're making are dependent upon getting
Federal money.
The Medicare money,
Yeah.
Medicaid money.
Yeah. Especially Medicaid. Medicaid right now has over 1.2 million Oregonians. About 30% of Oregonians are on Medicaid, on the Oregon Health Plan. And we indeed need that federal money to keep flowing. And it's predicted that with HR1, it's gonna be less money. So that too, while in the middle of us doing all of our projections, all of this kind of stuff comes about. But we really do believe that there will be a change in administration by the time we really get down to the brass tacks of saying we need that money and ways to get more money. And that's also being looked at. Charlie Swanson and Richard Gibson have just been really the backbone of doing these projections on how much money and how will it work and all of those things. And so I can't thank them enough. Linda has been extremely helpful also as we try to figure this out. But yes, we do. Now, Medicare, many of us who are on Medicare would, like to see it be part of the plan. It may take a little longer because it's all federal money. At least we have some leverage with Medicaid that the state is paying money to. So it may be the last thing to roll in would be Medicare, but many of us are trying to figure out how to not have that be so long. Because the economy and the way this whole thing works best is if everybody's under the tent. And then we can have the savings where at the provider office or the hospital, that they don't have to have all this administrative overhead to figure out, oh, you're on Blue Cross and you're on Medicare and you're on this, and oh dear, and then having to go back and forth with the different ways that things are paid, the way that the rules on, prior authorizations, all this kind of stuff is really expensive at both your provider office end and also at the plan end. If we have single way of paying for providers that right now Medicaid kind of pays here, Medicare pays here, commercial pays up here, and maybe the OEB and PEB pay just slightly there. Okay, so what we want to do is quote normalize it so that we have one payment rate for, and so it's not, as Bruce Goldberg, who I've worked with a long time, Bruce was our medical director way back, and he said, Mary Lou, we've got to stop wallet biopsies. Okay, because when you go in to a provider office or a hospital and you hand them your card, they may not say, oh, this is great. They're on X plan and boy, we'll get good reimbursement there. Or you may come in with yours and they go, oh, really? Medicare, Medicaid, oh dear, And I don't think it's quite that blatant, but those things do play in, when you follow the money. And if, your insurance is paying here and Mike's is paying up here, hey, Mike might get in sooner, might get, a better knee replacement, something, who knows? We don't want that. We don't want anybody, we want everybody coming in with the same card. And so they don't know me from you, and you're simply somebody who needs the care and you've got the card. And that's how these other countries do it that have a universal plan. You know, it's not, I was in England a couple summers ago, and a woman at one of the museums, somehow we got to talking as I was buying something at the gift store. And she goes, "You're from the United States." And I said, "Yes." And she says, "Well, how does your healthcare system work? And why do you have it like that?" Well, I don't know. So anyway, I had somebody ask me today, you know, are we really looking at like what other countries are doing? And yes, we are. But they're a country. Doing this as a state is more complicated. Now, I will tell you that Senator Merkley, I know him from a long time, and I ran into him not too long ago. And I said, "Jeff, this would be so much easier if you would just get this done at the national level." And we wouldn't have to be doing all this workarounds, et cetera. And he goes, "Mary Lou," he goes, "you get it done in one state and we'll follow." And I said, "Okay, it's gonna be your state. And we need your help."
Yeah.
And so he's like, "Okay." And then I've actually heard that some people have been meeting with Senator Wyden's staff lately.
I haven't met him yet.
And okay, and he is actually starting to say some things that kind of surprised us. So his staff is Tony German, who is vice chair of HCAO, and Valdez Bravo, who's the chair of HCAO. They actually met last 2 weeks ago with Wyden's staff, who really were interested in what's going on, and they've got another meeting set up. So I think that, you know, we're trying to work our federal people, we're trying to work our state people, and Senator Deb Patterson is just really behind this, okay? She wants to make this happen. Rob Knows, who chairs the House Healthcare Committee, has also moved. He wasn't, you know, a couple of years ago, he didn't talk about single payer universal healthcare at all. And now he's starting to say it. And I think Karen tonight said that some of his campaign literature actually says it. So we're starting to get, and I've heard him give a couple speeches where he's put it in. He's been on some panels. So I think we're starting, so the work that you guys all do with legislators, letting them know that people want this. This is important. And right now, HCAO is putting out a petition asking people to say, we want this, so that it'll go to all of the legislators to push it up the priority list. I mean, they have, you know, a list of what they think they're gonna be working on. And we just want to be sure that our healthcare issue is in that list of priorities. So any more just kind of in general, saying to people and saying to your legislators, you know, this is important. Keep your eye on the ball. They're working on it. They're gonna come up with a plan, and we need your support. So, other questions?
I have a question.
Yes,
She was ahead of you.
one hand up, yes,
So I want to pick up on what Merkley is saying.
yes.
I view this as something that's the goal.
Says Mary, can you hear Mary Fritz?
Not as loud, not as loudly as we would like.
Okay, she's gonna come up close.
You pull a chair up
There
here,
you go.
Mary, or there.
I'll just sit up here.
Okay,
So I'd like to pick up on what was said about, that Jeff Merkley said the other day. I wonder how many of us would be willing to look at this as an enterprise, not just by Oregon, but from a whole number of states. In the sense that as hard as it would be, possibly ours will lose, so another one get it, right?
Mhm.
We're all in all this together. If we're really gonna have that happen, then the sooner the better, it seems to me.
well, Mike,
But, so I'm
Yes.
wondering, I don't know what states there were about 12, no, like 6 states have already voted, or is it more like 4 or?
Mike can probably tell you, he works with the one payer states.
Oh, probably 15 states
That
have
many?
15,
activists working like Healthcare for All Oregon.
Yes,
And we talk with each other all through the month.
but how many have had the votes?
Oh, none, except,
No.
except for Vermont.
Oh,
And that
yeah.
was.
and Colorado,
Oh,
Right,
Colorado, yeah.
okay.
and they got voted down.
But they're now in the front of people's minds.
Yes,
It's amazing how many people I know who are informed about a lot of things. Oh, are we really gonna vote on that? I thought we had already said it was important.
Yeah.
or something. So what I would like to see is that we get a move on here.
yep. I don't disagree with you, and that, like I said, Mike is active with the various states that are working on this, and some of us are, I'm not as much, but I tune into these things and get into discussions with people. So we are, I think the more we can get out there, but we don't, in my mind, we don't want to put a bunch out and lose a lot. We need to get some, that this can be done and add to it.
But you also can't anticipate all the questions that people are.
No.
So.
I know,
Just.
Mark.
We'll
Karen.
go to Karen for a question, and then Fritz, I'll ask if anybody online has a question.
Okay, I'm involved because I ran a budget for the state,
Okay.
Western Oregon University. Health insurance increased by 9% every year, and cost of living was 2%.
Right,
And that was part of my budget. If the whole state government would save money with their health care,
Yeah.
why wouldn't they be for it?
yeah. I think they will be. I think that we haven't, from the board point of view, we have been focused on trying to come up with the plan and haven't really gone out and sought that kind of support. But HCAO, Mid-Valley, others are talking to, I happen to talk to, because I know the mayor of Portland. And so I talked to Keith Wilson and said, can you get me the number, like how much does the city of Portland pay in salaries for all the people that work for the city of Portland? And he gave me I got the number from his fiscal guy, and it's like 712 or 741 million a year.
Whoa.
Okay, that's how much it's paid. Then I said, can you tell me how much you pay for health benefits? And I've got it in here exactly, but it's like 117 or 140 million. It's a lot. And when you do the division, you find out that they are paying like 23% of salaries for health benefits for those employees, okay? The state of Oregon would be the same. The universities would be the same. The counties would be the same. So there are a lot of public entities that are struggling to keep up with, and 9% people would go, that's great. It's up there paying 18% now. I mean, it's like terrible.
The increase would be 9% every year.
Yeah, so everybody is just kind of going, how can we keep this up? I talked to the person who is with the Association of Oregon Counties, the executive director, and I've known her a long time. And Gina Nickel told me that for the counties, and especially it's the small ones, Multnomah does its own thing, Washington's its own thing, but the smaller counties all purchase their insurance through the Association of Oregon Counties. And she said last year, it increased 14%.
Oh, increase?
Increased
Oh my gosh.
14%. And she said they were able to not charge the employees that 14% because they had some reserves and they used them. They're gone. So this year, she said they are getting estimates that it could be 16 to 18% over last year.
Well, you'd have all that money
Exactly.
to pay for
I know.
healthcare.
I know, you'd have all that money to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so, once we get the basic plan, then the deal is to really be taking it out and talking with these various organizations and people in charge and saying, and the finance people, and saying, look, with Portland Public Schools, since my daughter is a teacher there, I'm able to chat with her about it, and I'm a Portland, district, taxpayer. And one of the things that people in Portland are unhappy about is class size. They want smaller class sizes. Well, if they were able to save a ton of money over here, they could put it into class sizes. They could also, the unions are nervous because many of them have done a really good job of negotiating good benefits, okay? And oftentimes they aren't paying for, handing over money, but they've given lower salary or something to get there. But they are really, they want to have some of that money be able to be bargained into higher salaries. And so, I mean, it will give the communities some money to talk about versus now, like in Portland, they're just talking about deficits and how to cut. Whereas if you were saving that money and say, look, we've got 65 million on the table here. And what did the community want us to spend that money on? So yes, I totally agree. And I think that's what we see as kind of phase 2 of this plan is once to get it, is to do that kind of community engagement and that talking with and in the old days, so Mike will remember this, we were getting resolutions from cities and counties. And we're thinking that needs to start again, because they're kind of stale. So like Multnomah County made a resolution in favor of this universal health plan, but it's like 4 or 5 years ago. The city of Portland did. So there's efforts now. I know HCAO is starting to work with some of those governments again to get them to make a whereas here it's resolved that we have this, okay? And to kind of just, and to get the leaders of those governments and institutions to kind of go, oh, because many of them aren't, they're moaning and groaning about what they're having to pay, but they really aren't dialed into, do you realize we've got a plan coming here and this is what it would look like and this is how it would affect you. So, but we have to get that plan nailed down.
Let me grab
Yes.
another question. Fritz, is there anybody online who has a question?
So for those online, you want to look at the menu on the bottom of your screen where it says React. Click on there to raise your virtual hand if you do have a question. I'm not seeing any other than one I do have in my mind. A couple of questions for Mary Lou. So one of them, one of the biggest questions that I'm sure you've gotten, I see Sandy's got a hand up too now. One of the biggest questions I'm sure you've gotten, and you alluded to this when you talked about rural Oregon. One of the first questions is, how much is this going to cost me? And I know that I was at the HCAO conference up at PSU this summer. There was talk then about the development of a calculator. So I
Yes.
kind of wanted to get an understanding as to when that may be available. And then my second question is, at what point, whether it's HCAO, the governance board, whoever, has there been any discussion around doing some voter polling on this issue to find out exactly what the interest is? As I've been told, if you're able to get 60% or more in a good comprehensive poll, your chance of passing this is pretty darn good. So sorry for 2 questions, but those are mine. And then Sandy will go to yours.
Okay, on the first one on the calculator, we can't do the calculator until we nail down those specifics. So it's kind of a chicken and an egg here, and we know we need the calculator. So as soon as we can get the board, hopefully in the next couple of months, to say, okay, we want an employer payroll tax of X for this size of company, for that's, all those little details, then we can easily build the calculator. And several people have already taken a stab at it with kind of what they know so far, but we don't really want to put that out publicly until we've really got the right details in there. Because the last thing we want to do is put something out, have everybody go, oh, this, and then all of a sudden say, oh, no, we were going to do this now, and that makes a change. So I hear you. We want to do it as quickly as we can. Okay. Then your next one was, hang on, because I got off on that, was what was the last?
Polling.
Polling, yes, polling. When I was on the board of Healthcare for All Oregon, which was until a few months ago, Valdez Bravo and I went to meet with the Oregon Nurses Association. And one of our major reasons for meeting with them was to talk to them about helping us fund a poll. And they are, and probably others, willing to do this. It's a matter of timing. When do you do it? And at that point, the Nurses Association felt it was too soon. So I think we've got to figure out when is the right time. And then also, as Warren George will reiterate, it's really the questions you ask. You have to be really careful and specific about what we ask in order to make the poll be effective. So it's being talked about. I think that ultimately we will get it funded. I'm not sure that we will get it done before December maybe, but I would think maybe early in the legislative session, in my mind, would be a really good time to put such a poll out. So it's being talked about, and I imagine that we would be working with Mid Valley and, everybody on what questions do we want. And then Warren is really kind of probably our expert on wording those questions since he did this before. So, yes, we need one, but it's a matter of timing and then exactly what are we going to be asking?
Okay, let's go to
Great.
Sandy's
Thank you,
question.
Mary Lou.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
so much. Yeah, Sandy, go ahead and unmute yourself. You've got a question, then we'll go back to the room.
Where is the journalistic community in all this in Oregon, and how can we get journalists informed enough, engaged enough to start writing about this in a completely bipartisan way, take it away from politics? Because it's not out there, and it's going to be this huge learning curve, as we know every time we bring this up. People don't understand why our healthcare system is broken, who are the players in it, and what is it about universal healthcare that will address all of the stuff that people are going through. But we need local stuff,
Right.
in the Oregonian and in local papers.
Well, I'm just blanking on the moment on the healthcare writer for the Oregonian, a woman. I don't know if anybody remembers her name, but Valdez Bravo and others have been talking to her, and she is actually in the process of writing quite an in-depth series that will be in the Oregonian. So I can't tell you exactly when or whatever, but that's happening. The other
That's fantastic news. I'm
Yeah.
so glad to know that. Thank you.
and Nick Campbell is a new volunteer, and he's now on the board of Healthcare for All Oregon, the C3. Nick is a writer and marketing person for the Lever. He's in Bend. He's taken over being the chair of the Bend chapter. And he is very interested and has a lot of contacts nationally and locally. And so he's also working on some pieces about that. And then Think Out Loud, which is an OPB, Dave Miller interviewer. We have been working, trying to figure out the right time to have an actual Valdez and Tony or whoever, a couple of people be interviewed on Think Out Loud. And so that is kind of in the potential works. One thing that is kind of discouraging is that HCAO Colin Stackhouse, who's doing communications stuff, lots of stuff on Facebook, etc. He contacted OPB about what would it cost for to actually be a sponsor. You know how you'll hear on OPB, such and such, a little blurb, kind of thing. But and so he found out what the the amount of money was, to get it like 20 times in a month, or I don't know all the details, but everything was going along. Actually, HCAO sent out an appeal to people saying, would people donate, for that cause, that we needed $2,000. We actually raised $4,000. Went back to say to OPB, okay, we're ready. And they said, we're really sorry, but we hadn't vetted this carefully enough. And this is too political. So we kind of said, wait a second, you told us this, we went out and got donations. And now what are we gonna do? So I think what HCAO is going to do, if they haven't already done, is contact all those people and say, we can either refund your money, or can we use it for other kinds of marketing? And so, but it was discouraging that, and Colin had done all the right things, but they hadn't really vetted it carefully enough. And apparently they are very careful about not wanting to do anything that looks too political. And I think especially in this time when they're getting the Trump criticism and all that jazz. So anyway, we're looking at a variety of those. Also, Valdez and Tony have been talking to folks at Willamette Week. So there are efforts going on. I just can't, not privy to know when they might come out.
On the other side, who's the columnist for the New York Times?
Nick
Yes,
Kristof?
Yeah.
Yes.
He writes something. from-
Yes,
And people in Oregon do read.
right. I happened to have been at a party where Nick Kristof was, a couple of months ago. And I never met him, and I didn't know a lot of people at this party. And so I'm at the, getting my little things to eat, and I kind of turn around and go, oh, Nick Kristof, hi, I'm Mary Lou Hennrich, and this is what I do. And he's like, oh, okay. And so he was more like, well, I'm all for it, but I just don't think it can work at a state level. And I said, well, we disagree, and that it would be great to talk more with you, etc. Haven't really been able to follow up on that, but at least we've put the idea in his head.
Wow.
We'll take another question from the room in a second, but I'll just respond to that. Canada did it province by province.
Exactly.
And there's every reason to believe it would work at a state level.
Yeah. Deb Patterson is from Canada. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Okay. And so she was talking to me the other day, and we talked about Saskatchewan, and I teasingly say to people, this province of Saskatchewan in Canada, and I can't find it on a map, and I don't think I can spell it. But anyway, this little place did it, and what the thing she said, which is true and kind of, don't really want to hear it, but she said, they did it in the 60s, really a different time. The kind of political, even in the world, it's not just in America, this kind of, we don't want to pay for other people, and, we don't like socialism, or, these kinds of things. So she said that, but she's from Canada, and so she really believes in this.
I'd just like to point out,
Speak loudly.
having worked up there, Saskatchewan and Alberta are kind of like, that's a very conservative province.
Yes.
And it's not like BC or Quebec or anything.
Yeah.
They were the ones
That did it. Yeah.
That would be our equivalent of Texas or Oklahoma, being the big states.
Yeah.
Just wanted to point
Yeah.
that out.
Yeah, very good.
And what, Alex?
Y'all.
I don't have a question, I have a
Comment, sure.
We're talking about media coverage. I've been with the clinic since 1979, since
Oh,
we
yeah.
moved here. And I'd like to see more coverage of the cuts Optum is made and is making, recently the urgent care now is no.
Urgent care, I know.
I have doctors that are leaving, they cut the optometry department, I mean, there's just lots of things, and you see little snippets on the next door neighbor or something, but that's as far as it goes.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, I think that's something that's a a local issue.
Yes.
And should be really beat that drum down in Lane County. Lou Hennrich, almost single-handedly led the efforts with what went on down in Lane County too. So I mean, and it got on the news and got all kinds of people riled up. So, I think needs to be done. And I think local people are the ones who have that opportunity to do it, I think. So I'd say, talk about it, figure it out.
Is there another question in the room? Mike?
So we've got a series of editors here at the Gazette Times, all excellent journalists, fired one by Lee Enterprises over the past 10 years. And so our job now is to meet the new one and let's all go.
Yeah.
Sit down and have an editorial
Mhm.
discussion with them.
Yeah, let's get the whole room in there, in their room.
Yeah.
Okay,
Other questions or what time are
Fritz?
we supposed to be done? I don't know if I don't wanna run over.
I'll check time in
Okay,
a
all
second,
right,
but,
okay.
Fritz, is there anybody else online?
Not seeing any more hands online.
Okay. Mike?
One more, with the legislature facing the cuts from HR1. I get the feeling that they're gonna be so preoccupied that talking about, universal health care will be beyond their.
Ability, or, yeah.
Mental.
And if that's true, what can we do to make it important?
Well, I think one of the things that we are talking about and that we can do is have some, I don't like the word stepping stones, but it's being used. But what are some things that can be focused on and get all of our support behind that will help things as we move forward? One of them is, it'll be a tremendously hard thing to do, but I think it's doable. And that is right now, the 13, I've heard 16, 13, a number of CCOs in Oregon. They all get money from Medicaid for pharmacy. And so say there's 13 of them. You got 13 different formularies, 13 different PBMs, 13, the money all going here. So, a law change that will take that money back out of those CCOs and have all the people who are on Medicaid, both the fee for service and the CCO folks, that have one pharmacy benefit and one pharmacy benefit manager. We have a Roy RX, which is the state. There are several states that have gone in together to become a good PBM. And three of us met with Trevor Douglas, who is their head of it, just last week. And Washington State is one of a member in this Array RX. There's like 6 or 7 states in it. Washington's one. Their law says that their public entities, like their Medicaid program, their public employees, their teachers, the OEB kind of things that we have, they have to put their pharmacy stuff into Array RX. Unless they can prove, there is a little clause, I guess, if they can prove that somehow they can do it less expensively, which is next to impossible. So the law in Oregon is permissive that those organizations may use. So we need to change that law that says they must use. And it's going to be a huge battle because of the lobbyists. I mean, we were asking him about, apparently there was an effort last time, and actually Charlie Swanson worked on it. Rob Nose caved at the end, but we need to get Rob on this time that say, this, and maybe because of the critical nature and the loss of the money and all of that, times have changed. And so I think that is one thing that definitely could happen. There may be some other things that would help us. Isn't exactly universal health care yet, but we want to be real careful that we don't make changes that would make it harder. So, but I think the pharmacy one, in my mind, is a real doable one, but it will be a huge battle.
How about just a placeholder bill to get their attention for that?
Yeah. Well, what do you mean?
The one that, I don't know if it's Senator Manning and whoever will,
Oh, it's going to be Deborah Patterson,
yeah, okay.
and she's already working with, with people from the board and advocates, to do that, two placeholder bills, actually.
Oh,
Okay, so that's moving, and she really wants to take the lead on it. In fact, she called me the other day because she was kind of concerned that making sausage and making legislation is, not pretty. And so there were some things that were kind of going on with various parts of the advocacy community that weren't all kind of heading in the same direction. And so she called to say, we got to get everybody on the same page here. But Senator Manning is definitely behind it. Representative Twee Tran, new Representative Tammy Carpenter, there's a bunch of them that really want to see something happen. So yeah, that it's being worked on.
So, we're gonna wrap it up here. Do you have any last words you want to
There's
say?
maybe one more
Okay.
quick question.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, so that placeholder bill, will that be on extension of the board's work or a placeholder for actual some kind of implementation?
There's gonna be two, I understand. One is for the continuation of the board's work for the community engagement, some things that we haven't had the funding to really do, okay? That's one thing, but the other will be the real bill that moves us forward, and it's being debated about now on what goes in there and how much detail and all of that.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mary Lou.
You're welcome.
This has been just outstanding.
Was it good? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we so appreciate you traveling to us.
Oh, it was no problem. It was
Make this
just,
happen.
freeway was bad out of Portland today. It was terrible, but once I got about Salem, things, perked
Yeah.
out, so.
Wilsonville, yeah.
We will briefly.
Yeah.
I just want to see if any of the committees want to make any kind of report. I see legislative in the back of the room. Is there anything you guys want to report in on? We've just been talking about legislative stuff, of course.
So I think Mary Lou covered it.
Okay. Fritz, do you have anything you want to say about outreach and communications?
Yeah, so one of the things, and this will be interesting for Mary Lou to hear, one of the things we've been working on, and Matt, another one of the board members, and I have been meeting with Warren George. We are in the process of putting together and planning for outreach. Oops, excuse me, sorry about that. I just realized I was muted. So outreach has been in the process of developing some rural outreach information. So Matt, one of the other board members, and I have been meeting with Warren George, and we're putting together some presentation material that we are going to be bringing out to Grange halls and in smaller communities to kind of, number one, share the fact that this is going on, the work that you're
Yes.
doing, Mary Lou, and the board, while at the same time giving them an understanding of, how our healthcare system started off back in the early 1900s. And before then, very simple payment model was you receive service from your doctor and you gave them some money or a chicken or something like
Yeah.
that. And how complicated the whole system is now. It's a spaghetti map that is just horrifying to look at. So again, our goal is to basically educate them.
Yeah.
So that's one of the cool things that we're in the process of trying to get some of these scheduled through the end of this year and maybe even into next year, depending upon how many we end up doing. And then the other thing I wanted to share, so Simon Hutton, who is our paid vendor who does a lot of social media work and content development, things like that. One of the things that Simon has been working on for a while is he has a podcast studio in his home, and he did one podcast with Mike. He's actually made contact with the attorney and one of the physicians with Eugene Emergency Physicians, and he's
Okay.
going to be doing a podcast with them to talk about their issues and how they navigated all of this stuff that they dealt with Peace Health and the venture capital firm that was trying to bring in a bunch of doctors. It was just, yeah, so that'll be very interesting. He's also in the process of putting together material for a documentary. In other words, for Oregon, the road to single payer. So that's just some exciting stuff that's been going on in outreach and communications.
That's
All
great.
right, thank you. I think, I don't know that, what? Oh, Susan wants to say hi to you, Fritz.
Hey, Susan, nice to see you.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think Dagmar is on, but Karen, would you like to say anything about the finance committee? Not right now, okay.
Thanks.
Then I think we may be done. I really appreciate the turnout on a warm summer's day
Yeah.
and on a night when the parking lot is closed off.
Yeah.
Thank you all for being creative in your parking. I hope not too creative. And, but you know, there's no police around here at this time of the evening, so. But let's call it a night and thank you so much. We will be back in a month with another strong program.